Today we're going to dive into a story that's pretty incredible. It's about a brand that completely changed the game in the beauty industry, all built on purpose and principle. It started in this tiny, moldy little shop and somehow grew into a global empire, only to face this spectacular, dramatic collapse. This is the story of The Body Shop, and it really makes you ask, can a business truly be a force for good and still survive? All right, let's get into it. Okay, it all kicked off with this number right here, 4,000 pounds. That's it. That was the loan Anita Roddick, a woman with absolutely zero business experience, managed to get back in 1976. And her motivation? It wasn't some grand vision of an empire. Nope, it was pure necessity. She just needed to support her two daughters while her husband was off on an 18-month adventure. And think about that for a second. This tiny loan, born from a need to make ends meet, was the seed money for what would become a global, multi-billion-dollar company. It wasn't cooked up in a boardroom with a fancy business plan. It was a real-life solution to a real-life problem. And that authenticity? That turned out to be its secret weapon. Now, this is where the story gets really interesting because it shows how just not having enough money can spark incredible innovation. Roddick couldn't afford proper packaging for her 15 natural products, so what do you think she did? She went to a local hospital, bought up their urine sample bottles, and then offered customers a discount to bring them back for a refill. She accidentally created one of the first circular retail models in history. And this part just perfectly captures the brand's scrappy beginnings. You know that iconic, globally recognized green color of the Body Shop? Well, it wasn't some strategic branding decision made by a marketing genius. It was literally the only color of paint she could find that was thick enough to cover up the damp, moldy walls of her first little shop in Brighton. Crazy, right? So this scrappy make-it-work approach wasn't just about saving a few bucks. It was a full-on rebellion. See, Roddick was taking a direct stand against the entire 1970s beauty industry, which was all about selling aspiration and anxiety in these fancy, disposable packages. The Body Shop sold the truth: natural ingredients, simple refillable bottles, and a strict no-animal testing policy that was just completely unheard of back then. And that radical idea, it caught fire. I mean, it really caught fire. The brand didn't just sell products, it sold a purpose, a cause. This whole ethos, when you combine it with a really savvy business model, fueled a period of absolutely explosive growth. It turned a single shop into a global force for social and environmental change. I mean, just look at this timeline. When Anita's husband Gordon came back, he brought in this franchise model that let them expand like crazy without going into debt. By 1982, they were opening 2 new stores every single month. The 1984 IPO was a massive hit. And by the early 90s, they weren't just a British thing, they were a global phenomenon. This chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? While the rest of the industry was pouring money into TV ads and secret formulas, the Body Shop built its entire brand on word of mouth and activism. They weren't selling beauty, they were selling an identity. And for a long time, that identity felt invincible. And here's the proof in the pudding. In just the first 8 years after going public, the Body Shop's share price skyrocketed by nearly 11,000%. Let that sink in. It was one of the most successful retail IPOs in British history, and they did it all without a traditional advertising budget. But, success always attracts imitators, and the brand's incredible rise led it straight into its first major crisis. The very identity that made it so unique was about to be challenged, copied, and questioned, sparking a real battle for the company's soul. And here it is, enter Bath & Body Works. Launched in 1990, it pretty much explicitly copied the Body Shop's look and feel, but they did it at lower mass market prices, and they expanded like wildfire in American malls. All of a sudden, the Body Shop's format wasn't so special anymore, and it started losing some serious market share. But then came a blow that was so much worse than a competitor. In 1994, a huge investigation came out that alleged the brand's ethical claims were exaggerated, its fair trade program was tiny, and that even the original idea was copied. This attack didn't just dent sales, it struck right at the heart of the company's most valuable asset, its moral authority. All of this led to a pretty stunning decision in 2006. They sold the company to the cosmetics giant L'Oreal, a company that, at the time, was still involved in animal testing in some markets. Roddick defended it, saying she wanted to be a Trojan horse and change L'Oreal from the inside, but for so many of her loyal customers, it just felt like a total betrayal. And that move really kicked off a long, slow period of decline. The brand got passed between multiple owners, and they all struggled to bring back that original magic. This all came to a head in a dramatic, swift, and just catastrophic collapse, which led to a desperate fight to even survive. So in 2017, it looked like there was hope. The Brazilian ethical beauty group Natura & Co. bought the Body Shop for £880 million. On paper, it seemed like a perfect ideological match, a chance for the brand to finally get back to its roots. But that turnaround, it never really happened. Just 6 years later, in 2023, Natura sold the struggling brand to a private equity firm for just £207 million. That is a staggering loss of value. The brand that had once felt priceless was sold for just a fraction of what it used to be worth. What happened next was just breathtakingly fast. I mean, within weeks of the acquisition, all the financing was pulled. Just 3 months after that, the UK business was in administration, and the US liquidation followed right behind. The empire that took decades to build seemed to just crumble in a matter of months. But, the story isn't quite over. The brand was saved from total extinction when a consortium called Aurea Group bought up its remaining assets. Their plan now is to build a much leaner operation and launch a digital-first comeback, pivoting away from that failing mall model that really helped cause its downfall. So after all of this chaos, this whole roller coaster ride, what really is the Body Shop's legacy? What is left of this pioneering company that can actually be rebuilt for today's world? Well, its core strengths are still incredibly powerful. It has pioneer status. I mean, it basically invented the whole ethical beauty category. It's got a 100% vegan certification that's really hard to replicate, incredible global brand recognition, and a 50-year history of activism that no new startup can just go out and buy. And this really brings us to the final, crucial question. What was the Body Shop really selling all along? Was it the lotions and the shampoos? Or was the real product the moral authority of Anita Roddick herself? The brand's journey seems to suggest that the moment that moral authority was compromised, the entire empire became vulnerable. And it's a powerful lesson that, for some companies, their soul isn't just a part of the brand. It is the brand.